What if I told you that so much of the identity of LEGO Dreams is ruining its chances of survival? The latest LEGO action theme saw sincere dedication from the company itself, but what LEGO might not have realized is a lot of what it put genuine effort into was key to its catastrophic clearance and a majority of builders' tendency to neglect it. That's not to say it didn't have qualities worth its merit. In fact, even some of the most detrimental qualities are rooted in positive intentions. For a theme the LEGO Group touted as being such a shining example of what they've learned over the years, LEGO Dreams by majority committed a lot of previous themes' mistakes. The idea behind LEGO Dreams is that it was a grand adventure within the world that human beings dream in. Anything could happen or appear in such a world, making the options for storytelling and for producing toys practically limitless. It was a way to get kids' imaginations going. The latter should always be the main focus of LEGO's efforts. What's key to accomplishing that is processing what info LEGO can take away from themes they've made before and apply that into what they're making next. Both the good and the bad. And I'm not sure if what hasn't gone over well has been fully acknowledged and understood by the LEGO we have today. With this series of videos, we are going over many of LEGO's major theme releases from the past 15 years. With them, I'll be making a point to communicate at least one thing LEGO took in the right direction with LEGO Dreams, along with some major things they took in the wrong direction. At this point, we've managed to go over LEGO's Big Bang themes, or specifically those with massive launches and heavy media pushes. Ninjago and Legends of Chima were what set LEGO on this path, and come Nexo Nights, they sought to do something more, with app integration. Whether they saw successes or surprise failures along the way, each would contribute at least some sense of direction from the previous. But sometimes they feel the need to experiment with an idea beyond what we as shoppers would consider reasonable. App integration is one such thing, regional exclusivity is another. While these both don't directly affect what brought us to LEGO Dreams, you do see the separate themes that prioritized each of these efforts also adopting and further proving ideas that ended up making their way into LEGO Dreams that probably shouldn't have. The first of those themes is LEGO Hidden Side. It was yet another massive effort LEGO put into prioritizing app integration. It was a theme that relied exclusively on augmented reality using your phone, with a premise that the characters and yourself can only see the ghosts haunting their town through phones that have the app downloaded, reaching the point that the characters in its short series nearly say that verbatim to the rest of the cast to try and onboard the builder who is watching. Shouldn't come as a surprise, but yes, this theme saw its own animated series. It also suffered from that very same issue that LEGO Dreams had, where it was written in a way the writers thought teenagers behave, as opposed to how they actually would within that context and considering the target demographic. With just how many series LEGO has made that have this issue, it becomes an even greater curiosity when you consider just how many did when you see LEGO Dreams having the same struggle a decade after the issues became apparent. One could argue the same for Hidden Side too, considering how many of those aforementioned themes had released before that and proved those struggles. LEGO Hidden Side's tie-in media was only released as shorter animations on YouTube. There was no television release at the start, despite streaming service prevalence still not being nearly as strong as it would become. This practice is fine, but LEGO did not put any effort into communicating that this theme had a story and that those YouTube videos were where you could find it. This being an especially jarring choice, as the app did not provide that context either, let alone the LEGO website, as by this point it was no longer the hub for LEGO's content anymore, as mobile device usability had become more of a priority over actually providing anything truly meaningful to keep fans engaged. While the LEGO website really had no chance of being the hub for LEGO Dreams' success, it released at a time where releasing your show online made perfect sense. They just decided not to make it a point to tell anyone that that's what these videos were. The titles and thumbnails communicated nothing, just that it was 22 minutes of something about LEGO Dreams, and that's not going to get people to click, just like it didn't work for Hidden Side. Hidden Side did eventually get a TV special. It even told a meaningful story and had some meat to it. But it was very clear at this point that all it was meant to be was a last hurrah, before the theme was retired in a nearly record-breaking 1.5 years. One thing that separated it from other LEGO themes was that it almost entirely took place in a contemporary environment, inspired by northern US port towns. A smart idea, as so much media has used smaller American towns for subjects of spooky folklore and cryptids, but LEGO's effort with Hidden Side did not execute on that at all. In the sets, everyone was just a normal person, possessed or otherwise. And considering, for the sake of forcing app use, the theme came with no actual ghosts in its sets, aside from one, you just have a bunch of sets of town scenes that barely did anything for the sake of prioritizing the app. Each set needed to stay how it was built in the instructions, and each had small flaps or rotating devices that revealed colors, and maybe it would have a function to show something spooky. Otherwise, it was just a contemporary scene with a bunch of LEGO City people in it, that people could just get in LEGO City sets that actually had play features in them. On just the show's side of LEGO Dreams, it did this same thing, in that every one of its lead characters are just normal people dealing with normal problems spliced between the fantasy of the infinite dream world. Something too rooted in reality is going to have a harder time resonating as a toy for builders at the age they were shooting for, if whatever fantasy that serves as the hook isn't constantly present within the contemporary space. This is something that very much hindered LEGO Dreams' narrative from reaching beyond its small group of fans, as it had too much normal literally cutting into the hyper-fantasy instead of complementing it or expanding on it, all in contrast to the sets which were exclusively Dreamworld focused. Both these themes struggled to find a balance between reality and fantasy that could resonate, and with how much it hampered Hidden Side, you would think LEGO Dreams would have learned from that. The second theme on the docket here is LEGO Monkey Kid. It's possible some of you may have not ever heard of this theme. That's because it was subject to regional exclusivity. As the theme finds roots in Chinese folklore, it was designed specifically with the Chinese market in mind. It's for that reason it was only ever properly made available in the Asia-Pacific region. Having attempted and learned from this sort of thing in the past, LEGO did make the sets available directly on their website at an international level, aside from some other very rare occasions, but not in any way that would make it a household name. It's crazy to say as much, as this was finally the time LEGO had managed to capture that bolt of lightning they've been chasing since Ninjago's inception. It had a show that was expertly written, with deep and thoughtful ideas littered across a vibrant fantasy world that transcends its origins of folklore. The difference between this and any of the other themes LEGO created was that LEGO Monkey Kid was entirely done with hand-drawn animation. All of these efforts worked together to spur 5 seasons of incredible storytelling, mostly animated by one of the most prolific animation studios out there today. LEGO had finally found the thing they were looking for, and subsequently made it borderline impossible to resonate with. Because of regional exclusivity mandated by the corporate ends of the LEGO Group, all over the assumption that it would not resonate with audiences outside of the Asia-Pacific region, the theme never had the chance to become the phenomenon it was meant to be. Its more dedicated global fans going out of their way to consume anything they could of the theme, and the general critical acclaim for it all being obvious nonetheless. Simply, corporate meddling became so effective on Monkey Kid's end that the animation studio and LEGO themselves cut ties with each other. All the while the theme spiraled out of popularity in the one region it was supposed to succeed in. All because LEGO wanted to do safe things with the theme, instead of innovate with it like they did at the start. Monkey Kid has not seen a new set release in over a year as of the time of this video's release, and the show has been absent for nearly 2, while sets still linger on LEGO's website without as much of a peep about anything being there still. It's likely the same corporate meddling is why Hidden Side's app integration focus was such an apparent boon for its execution as well. LEGO Dreams is also a very clear victim of this as well. We've established in this series so far that the whole idea of the dream world setting is that it's limitless, meaning you could make sets about literally anything in it. This basically means that the theme would allow LEGO to have a catch-all theme that is basically just kids' creativity, the LEGO theme. Basically the core of everything that LEGO is outside of the product. It's treated as an everything we've been trying to do theme for a corporate body who doesn't understand that fun and creativity isn't quantifiable, nor sellable as a product, as the idea of fun and creativity is completely unique to anyone who uses either of them. Clearly they didn't like the results they were getting, results that they helped create. As we've also established, a LEGO theme of infinite possibility can't have a focus like a strong narrative, as that would distract from the mandated concept of being literally everything. Which is ironic, as LEGO began to initiate another limiting practice with LEGO Dreams that they also did with Monkey Kid, which also exists as a perfect example of this. At the launch of LEGO Monkey Kid, each of the key superhero-like characters were getting their own vehicles, each colored and themed after their pilot. Some of the theme's most genius designs blossomed from this idea, and it really showed off the variety of what the theme was capable of, especially as they all put in the effort to exist within the same contextual space of the world they lived in. The problem is that some of these characters were more popular than others, and the sets made specifically for them were priced high enough that the combination of the cost and lack of popularity saw certain characters' sets lag behind. Come the 3rd year of the LEGO Monkey Kid theme, aside from a handful of villain and location sets, you would just get a bunch of vehicles themed after the main character, and maybe one for May, but no one else would get anything to their name. To make matters worse, the sets started to become formulaic. One character hub, one historical location, a giant beast, an ally vehicle, a May vehicle, an MK-themed combiner set, an MK-themed team set, and an MK-themed mech. We can assume the year following was poised to do the same, but none of the sets planned ever actually released. It just kinda stopped abruptly when it appeared things had finally gotten messy enough for LEGO to question what they were even doing. In a similar sense, LEGO Dreams followed that same pattern. To start, they had themed and colored sets tied to specific characters, but since the dream world had nothing to root the concepts in, the nearly 6 separate sub-themes within the theme had become apparent. Some builders wanted some, and not others, as we've gone over previously. Come the last couple waves of LEGO Dreams, Mateo always had a vehicle or neon green ally of some kind, a red animal themed set with or without Cooper, a blue animal with Zoe in it, a villain vehicle that was black and pink consistently, despite not having consistent villains, and a shark vehicle of some kind. Izzy's design direction for sets was excluded from these last waves, and side characters like Mr. Oz became relegated to largest sets, while Mrs. Castillo and her sets simply disappeared, right as she became important to the story. It was very clear based on previous history that these types of sets that had gone by the wayside had done so simply because they didn't perform the same way as the rest. Both themes were relegated to specific topics and were not given the chance to stray from them in any meaningful way after a while. And now, both themes appear to be at their end, having squandered their identities for safer ideas in environments that didn't quite have any interest in them in the first place. While each of these themes suffered in their own ways of execution, it's clear that some concepts just were not meant to blossom, while others were bogged down by interference thrust upon the creative minds that put these themes in the spotlight in the first place. The thing is too, despite Hidden Side and Monkey Kid's primary issues interfering with their growth, they both offered some incredibly valuable lessons for LEGO to learn from and how to approach their themes. Lessons that could have been implemented well before Dreams even had the chance to fully develop itself into what it had become. If these issues had any heed taken, it's quite possible that LEGO Dreams' future would be a bit more certain than it is now. If you can believe it, what with these issues clearly having a strong and swift impact, they're not what I would consider to be the most detrimental issues to happen to LEGO Dreams. But like the rest of the issues that befell this theme, these detrimental issues were apparent, with data to prove it before LEGO even got to the point where LEGO Dreams was under full development. So apparent that it's actually quite shocking that LEGO even attempted to do anything similar for how much of a damaging impact they had on the future of LEGO as a whole. Those lessons that LEGO has not heeded came from both of the original LEGO movies. But you'll have to wait until next time before we delve into them both. Did you like Hidden Side or Monkey Kid? Let me know down in the comments what your favorite parts of them were. While you're down there, give the video a like. You'll want to subscribe too, to be sure you'll see when the next installment on the LEGO movies releases, as well as other future videos. I'm Pen, and I'll see you next time.